Hello everyone, you have come to 5 Minutes Discovery channel. Remember to like and share, subscribe to the channel and click on the notification button to update my latest videos. The Polish newspaper suggested that Russia does not need to rush to sign peace with Ukraine. Myśl Polska, Poland, newspaper said that Russia does not need to rush to sign peace with Ukraine, because Russia's victory in the conflict in Ukraine will ensure stable peace. According to RIA Novosti, journalist Edward Karolchuk in an article published on Myśl Polska on May 22, Russia must bring the conflict in Ukraine to a logical end to establish a stable peace in Eastern Europe. Victory on the battlefield in the second half of 2023. Currently, Russia does not need to rush to sign peace agreements. Victory on the battlefield must be guaranteed by a beneficial agreement between Russian and American delegations is ready to return to the Istanbul Agreement and start a new round of negotiations. This is a proposal to create a breakthrough for the Ukrainian military and the West. In addition, the proposal recognizes Russia's interests in exchange for Ukraine agreeing to join NATO, said journalist Edward Karolchuk of Myśl Polska newspaper. According to Mr. Edward, there is no need to rush to sign a final agreement, because a shameful peace will is a betrayal of the victims of this conflict. This cannot be allowed to happen. The Polish journalist believes that the time for the Istanbul agreements and the government of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is over. After peace is signed, it is necessary to ensure security for the parties involved in the conflict. Conflict and the countries involved in this conflict, journalist Edward commented. Previously, Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized that to complete the special military campaign, it was necessary to demilitarize and defascist Ukraine, as well as ensuring security for the Russian people and the Russian state. The situation was critical. Mr. Zelensky held a special meeting with senior Ukrainian generals. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has noted that there are positive trends regarding electronic radio warfare, drone and missile programs, but there is still a lot of work to be done to combat bombs. Russia. In his evening speech, Mr. Zelensky said, "I organized a special meeting of the National Security and Defense Council, NSDC, and the General Staff of the Supreme Commander, with the Secretary of State. NSDC Leta Litvinenko, Chief of the General Staff Barhilevich, Deputy Prime Minister Fedorov and Minister of Strategic Industries Kamyshnit is about Ukraine's production of electronic warfare equipment, drones, named programs fire and our countermeasures against Russian air-guided bombs. This is a challenging subject, and although we see some good progress on electronic warfare, drones and missile program, there is still a lot of work to be done to counter Russian bombs. We discussed this in detail today. There is no other option. Ukraine needs systems and tactics that will allow us to protect your positions, cities, villages from these bombs. Currently, they are really the main tool to help the Russian army make rapid progress." Mr. Zelensky noted that on May 22, he spoke twice with General Alexander Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and discussed the situation in the combat zone. General Syrsky presented his reports in the morning and in the evening. Mr. Zelensky also announced that the front remained intact. First of all, it is the Pokrovsk front and other fronts in Donetsk Oblast, as well as the Kupiansk front in Kharkiv Oblast. Mr. Zelensky emphasized that currently the focus is on border areas, not only in Kharkiv Oblast but also in Sumy Oblast. Mr. Zelensky announced that Russian troops are being destroyed in Kharkov. Ukraine is in darkness because the power grid is attacked. Our forces are destroying Russian troops in Kharkov province, and that result is clear, Mr. Zelensky emphasized in a speech to the Ukrainian people on the evening of May 21. Mr. Zelensky's statement was made in the context of Kharkov. Deputy Governor Roman Semenukha said the Russian army was continuing to attack, especially in Vovchansk, the hottest spot in Kharkov at the moment. Russia launched an attack on Vovchansk from May 10 to repel Ukrainian forces from the city. However, Ukraine is in control of about 60% of the Vovchansk area and has repelled many attacks by Russian troops. The enemy will not stop, Mr. Semenukha said. At that time, Kharkiv Governor Oleh Syniehubov emphasized that the front line currently runs along the river cutting through the town. Ukrainian soldiers are trying to hold every house and street in Vovchansk city, and there is a plan for quick control. The Russian forces' response to the northern region of Kharkov province failed. However, Mr. Vitaly Ganchev, the official in charge of Kharkov province appointed by Russia on May 21, said that the Russian army currently controls about 40% of the city. Vovchansk city advanced deep into the defense line and defeat as many enemies as possible. The Russian army has complete control over the northern area of the city, the Russian official emphasized. President Zelensky warned last week that Russia has only launched the first series of attacks on Kharkov and may continue to conduct new attacks targeting the city of Kharkov, the capital of the province of the same name and the second largest city in Ukraine. In the evening speech on May 21, Mr. Zelensky also noted that the situation on the Kramatorsk, Kharkiv and Pokrovsk fronts is still extremely difficult and complicated and that most of the fierce fighting is still taking place in these areas. Pokrovsk and other Donetsk Oblast fronts, including Kramatorsk and Kharkiv, remain extremely complicated. Most of the fighting still takes place there, the Ukrainian leader declared. Ukraine is in darkness because the power grid is attacked. Moscow's intensive attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure forced Kiev to implement rotating power cuts nationwide. Accordingly, Russia's weeks-long attacks devastated Ukraine's power grid and caused serious consequences. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said half of Ukraine's energy system was completely damaged. There have been warnings that the electricity shortage could become more serious if Kiev does not take appropriate defense measures. More, especially when electricity demand spikes in late summer and cold winter. Russian airstrikes targeting Ukraine's power grid since March have now also caused the capital Kiev to lose power again, something that has never happened since the first year of the full-scale war with Russia. Many apartment complexes in the Ukrainian capital were plunged into darkness when the Kiev military government said at least 10% of consumers had lost power. However, Ukrainian Energy Minister Herman Halushchenko described an extremely bleak outlook for Ukraine. There is no sign of an end to attacks on the power grid and no way to fully defend against them, so there is no quick fix for power shortages. Ukraine is calling on Western allies to provide more air defense systems to prevent Russia from continuing to attack the country's power grid system. Ukraine sent the first prisoners to battle to strengthen the front line, confronting the Russian army. Ukraine has begun releasing the first prisoners eligible to serve in the armed forces as the country tries to recruit more soldiers to repel Russian advances on the battlefield. A court in Khmelnytsky, the western Ukrainian city, reported on Tuesday, May 22, that it had granted parole to 2 men convicted of theft to allow them to join the National Guard. One was born in 2000 and the other was born in 1981. The court accepted their petition and ordered the Khmelnytsky detention center to immediately release these people on the condition that they commit to performing military service, the court announced today. May 22. In the announcement, the court emphasized that these 2 prisoners are qualified in terms of health, expertise, psychology as well as physical strength to participate in military service. However, when entering the armed forces, former prisoners will now be monitored and prohibited from leaving their units or going out for personal reasons without the commander's permission. With the aim of increasing military numbers when Ukrainian forces are seriously lacking soldiers, President Zelensky signed a law earlier this month allowing the mobilization of prisoners to fight. However, only prisoners with less than 3 years remaining in prison are allowed to register for the military enlistment program. Ukraine's initiative also only allows parole for prisoners going to war, not full amnesty. Ukraine prohibits criminals convicted of sexual violence, murder with 2 or more victims, serious corruption and other crimes. Former high-ranking officials participated in the program. According to government sources, after the law on mobilizing prisoners to fight was passed, more than 3,000 convicted people expressed their readiness to join the war. Previously, Ukraine estimated that it had up to 20,000 prisoners who could participate in the military enlistment program. Russia has also previously applied a strategy of mobilizing prisoners to fight, whereby tens of thousands of prisoners are believed to have been sent to fight in Ukraine with promises of amnesty since the conflict broke out in February 2022. This is the end of the video. Hello and see you in the next videos of 5 Minutes Discovery.